How's everybody doing? I'm in the shop today, and I have the Finnish Valmet out here. Getting her all cleaned up for this practice session coming up on Saturday. So I thought I would just take a couple of minutes and show you guys the actual purpose of my channel, which is to document and display some obscure rimfires that some people have never seen before and might be interested in, or recently acquired and wanna know what to do next. So this is a Valmet, made in Finland in the 70s before Seiko took over. This one I had mentioned is one of my favorite rifles, and what I would consider mid-tier, and it's mid-tier for a few reasons, which I won't touch on right now, but accuracy isn't one of them, and trigger isn't one of the reasons, because the trigger is excellent. It's about 5 ounces, and it's a very accurate rifle. No complaints there. I'll just quickly show you guys the inletting of this stock, and the craftspeople who made this finished the inside to a very high degree. The inletting on this stock and the wood quality is excellent. The wood quality and inletting is far superior to my 54, Anschutz 54. The grain itself, the finish, the overall care taken is superior, I would say. Okay, so we'll get that out of the way, and I will show you something unique about this rifle is that they built on an absolutely massive billet of steel. Rather than having a round action, which is a simple way to do it, these guys machined an absolutely massive flat surface. So this rifle inside the stock is extremely stable. And like I have to say, the fit and finish, the tolerances are so tight, bedding I don't even think is required on a rifle like this because of the contact area, surface area is so large. So anyway, so having a look at the receiver, we have the M220000, which is the actual model number of this, not the serial number. So it's model 220,000. We've got a made in Finland on the side. We have Valmet and some Finnish on top. We have a coat of arms, the Finnish lion. We have standard over here, which is also the model. And then we have the serial number. Okay. So the standard M220000, or what this rifle is known as, flip it over, and I don't know what these actually mean because it's hard to find some information on it. But I have a 142 stamped. I have a 1 on the barrel. I have a 142 stamped on the receiver. There's a very small indexing mark here on the barrel and on the receiver, and this one has been indexed. So you'd think, okay, 142 and 142 are the last 3 digits of the serial number. Barrel and receiver match. Perfect. Well, my serial number is not 142. So the Schultz & Larsen is like that too. There's little 3-digit numbers stamped all over. The gun itself has a 3-digit serial number, but there's like a different one on the butt plate, a different one on the... So maybe there are parts numbers when they assemble them. I'm not sure. Nobody knows. But on this particular example, due to the barrel and the receiver being stamped and indexed, I would say that this is a numbers matching rifle. Although why they would do it like that, I don't know. Nobody knows. The barrel itself is a high quality, high polished blue. I would say it's medium heavy profile, although it's certainly on the heavier medium profile. It's got a very nice flat target crown, and kind of like a barrel band front sight dovetail, as was popular in the time. The blue is very nice. It's very nice and deep and well done. It was polished. So this one, the standard one, is a little bit smaller of a rifle than some of the free 3-position rifles that they made that were called, like they're all called Finnish lions for the most part due to this lion coat of arms up here. But some of the barrels are thicker, and they're hard to find pictures of, but like this one's been turned down slightly. So this rifle was a little bit smaller and lighter than some of the other ones, like much smaller than the barrel than my Schultz & Larsen, for example. But the receiver on this one is massive, just like Schultz & Larsen, just thick and huge. There's a slots cut out here for the factory apertures. Just a massively made, overbuilt receiver, which is what you want. Okay, so this trigger is kind of a unique trigger in that it's about 4 or 5 ounces, but it has no bolt release. So it's a direct sear style, So how they managed to get this trigger so fine without the bolt flying on the back, I have no idea, but they've done it, and I've never had an issue like that whatsoever. The trigger is retained by 2 pins. You knock those out and the whole assembly comes out. And if you get one of these, I would recommend that you ultrasonic or soak it, degrease it, rather than taking out these pins. I've done it, and it's not super awesome to put back together. However, all the surfaces are hardened steel. The bearing surfaces of each one are very, very highly finished. It's a beautifully made trigger, but a little bit on the intricate side to get back together. So you open the bolt, slides back, depress the trigger, bolt comes out, just like any direct sear gun. You can see the shot of the sear down there, contact surface, and again, the massive receiver. Right here, you have the ejector, which is retained by the screw assembly right here. It would be very easy to make. So this one, you just would have to adjust it until and you got it exactly how you wanted it to clear the groove on the bolt. I mentioned that because, like in all my videos, I say a lot of people are scared of these because, oh, something breaks, how am I going to find a part? A lot of times you can make the parts yourself or have somebody make the parts for you. So as long as you have a good idea what you're looking at. However, again, one of the reasons I wanted to post these videos is ones if you buy a rifle and the rifle's complete and it's missing that. Well, somebody like me posting a video like that would be helpful because you could at least have a good look at what you're looking at. Even more so if I took it out and showed you. Maybe that's another video for another time. But anyway, you can see what you're up against there. You can see the craftsmanship, the level of care taken here. The surfaces are polished. They're even on areas where you'd never see, they're still reasonably finished. So a lot of care was taken in the manufacture of that. I should go back to the trigger here and say I've loosened the blade on it. Okay, so it has an adjustable blade and like a dovetail, right? So you can move your trigger fore and aft in your trigger guard. The adjustment screw is underneath right here. So the trigger blade slides like this in a slot, and you can adjust it fore and aft. And then that's the screw you adjust, for your tension. A word to the warning though is when you're adjusting this trigger and you're like, oh, I like it here, and then you put it back in the gun, on my particular example, the bottom of the blade interferes with the trigger guard. And so there's a balance between how far back you go and how light your trigger pull is. So let's say you want your trigger way back here. On my case, it interferes with my trigger guard. So I move it forward, okay? So on my example, now it's bottomed out on the bottom of the receiver. There's no funkiness going on with my gun, I've checked. It's a relationship with how light you have your trigger. So if you turn this screw to the higher setting, then you're able to move your blade back farther. If you turn this to a lighter setting, then you can't go as far back on my example. So I've got my trigger sear adjustment screw about there. And then I find, now I'm going to have to do it all over again because I took it apart for you guys. But basically, if I get it back in there, basically I had it just so it was about a third of the way off the adjustment screw. And it's pretty straightforward. I'll have to redo it now. But you basically, and it's a very simple adjustment. So we'll call that good, although I'll probably have to fine tune it. And you can ask for a nicer, cleaner package. But anyway, that's the trigger. And, excuse me, the spring tension is harder than you think, but I think that has to do with bolt retention because like I thought originally, oh, I'll swap these springs out like I always do. But I think if you do that, you'd very quickly have a bolt fly out the back. So because this is match level, 4 or 5 ounces is mint. So I don't want any better than that. You get spoiled with double set triggers like in the Anschutz, Schultz, and Larson because they're ounce level or less. So you get used to it, but at the same time, this is bang on. This is a great trigger. So I don't have any reason to adjust it. So this is the bolt here. And we have a very large, basically at 1 o'clock extractor. Beefy, long, very heavily made with even a reinforced profile. If I could show that to you. If that makes sense. And then firing pin at the 9 o'clock position. Again, not too crazy long. I'll try to get it out so you can see the profile on it. All right. Again, very simply made, but beautifully made. You can see where the ejector rides in this groove here. There's not a lot of slop in there. You can see that that's a very small groove and it's very precisely machined. Again, this gun is made to very high tolerances. Okay, so get a good view of the bolt underneath. That would be the bolt stop there. Okay, very nicely made. So this works like a CZ to decock, or any rifle like that. You decock it by pulling the bolt handle, and I'm going to show some interesting attributes to this bolt here. So here at the end here, we have this black part at the end is like a button, okay, for lack of a better term. Bolt end cap button, I don't know. And it fits in this slot here. And so this button slides in and out of this keyed slot with this groove in it. Inside here is the firing pin spring, and there's a top hat on it. And so when you cock the bolt handle, you compress the spring, pull the trigger, flies forward, hits the hammer. The hammer inside that hits the firing pin is very similar to Schultz & Larsen, just like a cylindrical with a sear contact surface on the end. Almost identical. However, the Schultz & Larsen is a cock to close, where this is a cock open to cock. So when you cock the bolt, lift it up, that's what cocks this rifle. That's actually one of the reasons I consider it a mid-tier, is because caulking this is so severe, because this firing pin is so stout, the spring rather, that you really have to hold on to the rifle, and it makes you turn the rifle sideways. Where in the Schultz & Larsen, it's a cock on close, which is difficult, but at least you're pushing into the bipod and forward or whatever, so it's more stable. But this, you literally lift the gun off the table, bench, so that's one of the annoying parts about it. Anyway, so this slides out of here, and then your spring and everything will come out, and your part of your bolt handle here. To get it back in is a little bit tricky. Now, sorry, the way I do that is I take a cloth or a paper towel and I wrap it around like this to hold everything together. And then I push on the edge of this surface like this. And so that, under tension, it'll just slide out. Not easily, but it'll just slide it out. So get it on the edge of a table and you hold it over like that, so when everything flies out, it catches. And then it's just out. The harder part is getting it back together. And basically what I do is I take something like my fine punch here, I clamp it in a vise, and with the spring sticking out, I push against this back here at the bolt and collapse the spring, and then I'm able to slide the button in just to where it contacts where my punch is sitting in, like this, basically inside, and then compressing the spring, then you can slide it on, pull the punch, and then push it on the rest of the way. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm sure you guys can kind of get the sense of what I'm talking about there. It's not difficult, and once you do it, you're like, oh, that's how it does it. But nobody explains anywhere online how to do that. That's important, because you need to know how to take these apart, and without any pins or screw, how do you do it? It's like the first time you take apart a Savage Mark II bolt. Oh my gosh, you got to pull that apart, and there's like a threaded collar. Oh, like if you've never done it before, it's like, how do you get that thing apart? So this is similar. Basically, it's toolless design, other than a punch to put it back together, because I don't know how else you would do it. It comes apart in a breeze. The surfaces in mine are highly polished. You couldn't get any more slick inside. What you're fighting is the compression of this spring under tension, which I'll show you guys in a second. So to show you guys, it's stout. To cock it like that, just like a cam that goes up, and these surfaces again are hardened, so there's no galling, there's no wear. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll try to zoom in there for you. Like, take a look at that. There's no galling or tearing, and it's hard to say, like, show, but I don't know if I'll see, but the actual sear surface here has an angle cut into it that matches the angle as it rides up the bolt ramp, basically, on both sides. It's like a little, instead of just making it flat, they got the angle right, so you got hardened steel on hardened steel, rather than an edge that would very quickly wear a groove into it. It's almost got like a flat bearing surface to ride on to increase the wearability of this bolt. I could find no wear, like no groove, inside these surfaces. You can kind of see it there. See the edge of it right there? So there's like an angle that's been milled into right there, and it continues into the sear. and that corresponds perfectly with the angle of this ramp, and it just follows it up. So I keep my bolt relatively dry. Like I said, I spray them and wipe them really quick. However, I do put some heavier oil, like a 30 weight non-detergent, or like sometimes Ballistol ceramic grease inside this cam surface. And a lot of my bolts, I do that away from the spring. So none of those are around the spring, to help with the caulking action of this thing, which I'll show you guys in a second. Okay, so again, you got to make sure your bolt is caulked. And then insertion is basically as easy as it gets. You line it up, pull the trigger, and in she goes. Okay, I'll try and do this over here. All right. Okay, so there we have our assembly right there. Gonna get my fingerprints off of the beautiful steel, and I'll get it back in the stock for you guys. Okay. So like I said, we had two different profiled action screws. Like most of guns like this, I always do the forward one first. I noticed on this one, the rear one can be, I think the slot in it is quite, the tolerances are quite tight. So every once in a while it gives me some trouble getting it actually into the hole. And so this time it actually went in no problem, but you have to be careful, because it's almost better to tighten down, like get it started before doing the others. And that might be you guys' common sense, but not everybody realizes that. So I use a proper gunsmith screwdriver, very thin profile, made for these old guys, because it's very easy to strip them out. This screwdriver is hardened as well, and so even though the profile is super thin, well, I'll show it to you in a second. I know I'm off camera here, I'm just trying to do this, get it all lined up for you, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all together. They're very easy to slip and screw up the threads of these beautiful screws, and I don't feel like making them. So okay, so now we're back in the stock, as beautiful as ever, right? And I want to tell you, so this rifle weighs, I don't know, 11 pounds. This caulking effort, like, I can pull up the rifle without that caulking. So I can, see what I'm saying? That's how significant this caulking effort is. So, you know, like, I'm a big guy and I shoot a lot of target guns, so I'm kind of used to it. I can do it with one hand. But like, if you're on the bench, you got a bipod, you have to grip back here. Okay? So there's no two ways about it. So like, I have the ball on it, you'd need that. So you're in position, up you go. Like, it's one of the stiffest caulking bolts I think I have. It reminds me a lot of the Remington 540 XR that I have. That's another one. And I think because of its fast lock time, they made it so, man, with the, like I talked about in my video, I made a kind of cylindrical bolt handle for it to get purchase on my hand, because it had this tiny little gumball of a bolt handle similar to this one, and it tore up my hand just opening and closing it. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm complaining about it, but I am complaining about it. It wasn't good. Anyway, so that's what it's like. This is what's involved with one of these, and I hope that this helps somebody, showing you guys what's involved with a finished Valmet. I can't say enough positive things about it, even though I focused on some negatives there. I don't want to make it sound like it's all doom and gloom. This is one of my favorite rifles of all time, because it is simplicity, high class simplicity. Beautiful to look at, the wood quality, the bluing quality, the handmade quality, the The quality of the parts, the machining, even on surfaces you don't see. And not to say that like Anschutz isn't like that. Anschutz is like a space shuttle. It's beautiful. Walther's like a space shuttle. These things are beautifully engineered and made. But this is a very small company who made things by hand, and we're competing with big companies like Anschutz and Walther, and these guys were trying and they were doing it, and you know, the machining and the stuff was smaller, and Anschutz had already dominated the world stage. They already had it, you know, and still do. So anyway, I just thought I would show this to you guys and get it out there. For those of you who have one or are interested in getting one, don't hesitate. Get one of these. They're rad. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for, I know this one turned out to be quite long because there's quite a few things I wanted to highlight on it. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you on the next one.